Okay, welcome. Good morning. It is June 1st, and we're having a Co-Thrive Thought Leader Jam session on local food. It's something I'm really passionate about. My name is Kathy Sipple. I've been hosting these jam sessions now for, I think, 8-9 weeks. Stephen, who's right here, was another member who helped me kind of come to this idea that maybe this would be a good idea to stir the pot within our time bank, within just people that we know that have good ideas. And all of you, luckily, are in the time bank. So anything that we discuss today, just know that we could actually help one another through the time bank. I think that the time bank is a really good way to get something like a local food system going and started. So anyway, Stephen, since I mentioned your name, can I go ahead and let you be the guinea pig to start us off?
Sure. So good morning. I know some of you know me, and I know some of you. I'm Stephen Donaco. Been a member of Co-Thrive since Kathy started it, and a member of the Time Bank from the time that started too. So I'm glad to be here and be of support. And I'm probably more interested in local food now than I was earlier in my life. Although I will say my interest originally was stoked back growing up when we had this huge garden in our backyard. So I really appreciated all of the fresh food that I had as a kid that way. And then kind of growing up as, and just becoming part of the crazy world and all the busyness, you sort of lose touch with that. I mean, at least I did. And then now coming back to it because I believe, one, it's important for all of us to eat as healthy as possible and to really make a conscious effort to get beyond the whole processed food industry. And I really have a greater appreciation for the health benefits and the environmental benefits of eating local, and importantly, distributing as much of that local food as possible to people who need it. So that's me.
Cool. Thank you. And Charlotte, oh, you're chewing, so I'll come back to you.
No, I'm okay.
Oh, you're okay. All right. Charlotte's also been on these for kind of a long time. So you want to go ahead and go next?
Right. Following up on what Stephen said, I'm calling in from Lakeville, Indiana, and I grew up having a garden too, and really being interested in gardening and eating local. And I'm eating some strawberries out of my educational farm garden. And I'm having some kids today who will come and pick strawberries. We had 120 second graders yesterday, and everybody got to pick a strawberry and appreciate the delicious taste. And that's, I think, really key to having people, appreciating local food and wanting to continue gardening. It's very relaxing. And if kids can experience this when they're younger, then hopefully they'll carry it on as adults. So that's what we do here in Lakeville. And the name of the educational farm is Prairie Winds Nature Farm. And Kathy's been very helpful getting me set up with social media and different outreach efforts and advertising and marketing. And I'm also a member of the Time Bank, and I see the Time Bank as a way that we can bring more people into sustainability education in general, but specifically with the food part. I'm going to be I'm a nonprofit now, and I'm going to be trying to recruit more low-income families to come and visit the farm and hopefully get them on board, because a lot of times low-income folks don't appreciate how good fresh vegetables and fruits taste because they've never had access to them, and they're not really on board with cooking and things like that. So because of various obstacles in their path. So I'd like to try to help at least the kids be able to experience that. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
Thank you. And I just want to welcome Meenakshi and Anne. I'm awfully sorry I threw you guys an added challenge with having a crazy link that didn't work, and this is your first time joining. So I just want to catch you up. We were kind of anticipating some people might be still struggling with getting on, so we were doing a little bit of intro. Stephen has introduced himself so far, and Charlotte has as well.
Can I just add what I was going to say? I was going to follow up on the low-income folks. I'm going to ask them to join the time bank if they do send their children here for a scholarship or for free. I'm going to ask them in exchange to join the time bank and give me some hours of credit. Instead of just giving them a free camp day for their children, I'm going to ask them to join the time bank.
Very cool. I love that. I'd love to explore that maybe in a different, jam session, because that seems like a big idea right there, but I love that. So anyway, I just want to kind of get Anne and Meenakshi acclimated. Meenakshi, are you still there? Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, since you guys just arrived, again, what we're doing is just introducing everybody. So I'll let Christine, Catherine, and Pat introduce themselves, and you guys might just want to be thinking about what you're going to say. I've asked people to say who they are, where they're calling from, and kind of, their interest in local food. So Christine, do you want to go next?
Sure, that'd be fine. Well, my name's Christine Maloney. I am from Valparaiso, Indiana. I'm in the process of starting a nonprofit based on permaculture principles, and plan on doing a lot of educating of people and showing people how they can retrofit their current home to withstand any political, economic, or environmental crises that may occur, based on the permaculture principles of earth care, people care, and fair share. I've been in the education field for the past 15 years. I've done a lot of homeschooling of my own kids, as well as organizing educational co-ops and field days and conferences. So this has been a passion of mine for quite a while, and I want to extend this out to the community so that we can build resilient communities. We need to focus on local foods, like Stephen was saying, really promote people's health so that we can just have healthier populations, fewer diseases. And my main focus, though, is compost. So taking food waste from restaurants, and food and paper waste. So that includes napkins, toothpicks, hopefully paper straws, things like that. I would love if somebody could donate land so that we could have a place to do this composting, and then take the finished compost and use that on community gardens, boys and girls clubs, nursing homes, to help make educational programs come alive for those people. So that's my focus. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And the dual challenge up there, Catherine and Pat. I'll let you guys flip for who goes first.
I guess I got the short straw. I'm Catherine Hansen. I'm a Qigong master healer and instructor. And one of the things that I teach people is about the importance of food as energy. And the number one component to that is that the absolute best food for you is food that's grown within 100 miles of where you are. And if it's food that you've grown yourself, that's, as good as it gets. And I've seen the need for this sort of thing for a long time. But I've also brought a new component to things. I mean, I always had a garden growing up. Through all of the moves, because I've moved many times, through all of our moves while I was still married, always we had a garden. I've been divorced for a few years now, and I've moved many times that way also. And I now experience that part of where it's a little harder to get to where you're established enough to have a garden and all of those things. So I'm bringing a new challenge to things this year and trying to put in what I can where I am and all of that. But trying now to get back to, how do you create a system that works, where we do have local food available, and with our busy lifestyles, that we don't all feel like we're overworked with everything that we're doing, because the more there's a community to anything, the easier it gets, the better it gets. So that's really where I'm from today.
Cool, thank you. And how about you, Pat?
Okay, Well, I'm going to mostly kind of talk about the gardening thing because that's really right up thing. So I've always had a home garden, and my grandparents and parents garden quite a bit. But I am in charge of our churches, St. John's United Church in Chesterton, our community garden. And we have 6 raised beds with plants, and then we have another flat area where we grow green beans and cucumbers and stuff like that. But just a Tuesday evening, I met with another group of people. It's kind of young 30-somethings, 20, 30-somethings, called the Rat Pack. And these are people that are interested in civic-minded things and gardening and stuff like that. So they want to learn how to do a community garden too. So that's really great. Now, our community garden is for the food pantry, Westchester Food Pantry. And then when things are ripe and it's not distribution time, I also take it to the other churches that provide the free meals on Mondays and Fridays and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that, is really coming up to get more people involved. I'm getting fairly good volunteers and stuff like that, but it's part of an education process of saying, well, okay, now you got to see, what do we really need? Are there bugs, eating up this stuff? What are we going to do about it? Or weeds. They're like, no, don't pull that weed. That's lamb's quarter. That's the nutrition is off the charts and stuff like that. I have to re-educate them. Don't pull that. I know we used to pull that weed for, forever, but it's great. Just pluck it off and steam it or eat it in your salad, and it's going to be so nutritious and wonderful for you. And I have even taught some of the people at the food pantry about the lamb's quarter, so they're used to knowing about it, and they will take it and cook it.
Very cool. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And how about you, Anne? Do you know how to unmute yourself? Yeah. Looks like
Yes.
you got this. You're a pro. You're a pro.
I apologize right now because it's the time that I get my daughter ready for school. So I'm going to be multitasking throughout this.
Hi, Tegan. Is Tegan there?
She's not up yet. I'm actually
okay.
delayed.
Okay. She's adorable.
I'm sure she'll chime in at some point. My name's Anne. I live in Crown Point, Indiana. I'm originally from Munster Highland area. I got into the local food movement when I moved back here from college and started working with Farm Direct Meat. They were a small company that purchased whole animal from local farms in northern Indiana and then distributed cuts and sold cuts of meat at farmers markets. So I worked farmers markets for a while. And from there, I got involved with helping a lot of meat farmers distribute their product and get their product to retail markets, wholesale markets, and restaurants. And it's just kind of like snowballed, I guess. I'm personally really interested in the same thing as Christine. Self-reliance and being able to support yourself off of your skills. So I can a lot. We garden. We just purchased 11 acres and are trying to figure out what to do with all of it. That's kind of my story. I was just voted the president of the Northwest Indiana Food Council.
Congrats.
Thank you. And we're a group that covers all 7 counties of Northwest Indiana. We're a multi-stakeholder alliance. We're trying to build a just, thriving, sustainable local food system for everyone in Northwest Indiana.
Well, I'm very glad you could be here because you're probably the most official capacity. So, yeah, and I would love to have you in the time bank too. I mean, I think so far, not to put any pressure on you, but so far you're the only one on this call not on the time bank. So I know
it's been on my list to do. I need to do it.
You put in so much volunteer time, and this is like one way that everybody that does so many good things can at least get credit in the time bank for the time that you put in. And I just want to say too, for all of you in the time bank, I would love for you to each give yourself 1 hour, like charge it against the Co-Thrive Time Bank, because to me, you're building value for the community right now. Okay. So just keep that in mind. After we're done, like log on to Our World and however long, you spend here, give yourself that time. It's not as good as maybe a paycheck, but you can cash in that time that you've spent for like a sailboat ride or a massage or, whatever the heck you want, something food related perhaps. So
Are you going to do that too, Kathy?
I need to. I have about probably, hundreds of hours I need to log, and I'm a little afraid of like overloading the system if people are like, oh my gosh.
But you need to do that because you need to get some credit. And
I do. You're right. Thank you for that nudge. Thank you for that permission slip. So anything else from you, Anne?
I don't think so.
Okay, obviously it's a jam session, so we'll be jamming further, but since we're all getting to know each other, I want to give everybody adequate time to talk. Meenakshi, hello. I can barely see you. I could just see the top of your head.
Now, I don't think you want to see me this morning.
Okay, well, it's totally optional. You don't have to.
But anyway, I'm sort of unofficial time bank member, I guess, because I get busy and never really do anything with it. But I'm a friend of Kathy's, and I'm originally from India, where, food is fresh, or used to be when I was growing up, fresh and natural, and a lot of homegrown food, which I miss. And I'm no good at growing anything because in India, you always had people who did things for you. So I guess I can depend on my friends. But I love Food Swap and, belong to a group which is Dining for Women, where, another time bank member, Judy Allen, she's always bringing interesting dishes. And I take some of my dishes there. It's kind of a food swap. But I like the whole time banking concept, so I won't keep you too long. It's interesting to listen.
Okay, well, I'm going to push back that you don't do anything because just yesterday, Meenakshi called me and said, hey, I made extra egg curry. I could be by your house in 10 minutes. Do you want me to swing by with some? And I said, heck yeah. So I haven't credited her yet for that time, but I would gladly give you an hour, Meenakshi, or if it took you longer than that, I would gladly give you more than that. But I mean, that's what it was worth to me. I would have paid that. It was like the best Indian food I've had in years. And here somebody made it for me, delivered it. I mean, where are you going to get that? So I'm going to push back and say you are part of, the time bank and the local food system. But thanks. I think we have a really diverse, group of people here. And I'm really pleased to see this much interest. I think this is something that, ideally, if you're interested, maybe we could even do follow-up jam sessions on one specific, aspect of the local food system that comes up and do kind of multiple, versions of this. I'd also love to show everybody where we can follow up. Let me just get on there, Lumio real quick. And again, I really do want to give Stephen a shout out because he kind of helped me put these systems together. We're just always trying to do more with the time that we have, the limited time that we have, and technology. But I see so many people with great ideas that just don't get connected, or if they get connected, they don't stay connected, unfortunately, because we just have so many competing thoughts coming at us. So let me quickly do a share screen, and I'm going to show you. Can you guys see my screen right now? Lumio? Are you able to see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Lumio is kind of a free online forum piece of software that's hosted in the cloud. And so I developed a group called, Co-Thrive Thought Leaders, and coming out of these jam sessions, if we've got ideas that we want to explore, this is a way that we can do it. And I think with this many people on the call, I can absolutely say, let's just start a thread on local food. And, that's all I'm going to do right now. But I can invite all of you guys to join that thread, and then we could start a sub-thread within that thread on composting or food deserts, community gardening, whatever. So that's another way that we can do it outside of just plain meetings. There's another thing in here that's called proposal, where you can seek collective agreement. So if there's something that you want to do, let's say you want to start a community garden, or you want to, like Christine wanted to host another permaculture workshop. Charlotte and I went to a permaculture workshop that she did back in April, and it was just fabulous. I think everybody that went there thought it was great. That's something that she's willing to do as a time bank member. Anyway, there are a couple of technological tools that, frankly, we're kind of learning as we share them. So we're not experts, but we're bringing those together. So anyhow, that's something. So I was really, really listening, and maybe not being the best moderator this morning, but can you guys kind of suggest a thread bubbling up from everything that we talked about, maybe kind of a way to start off, or otherwise I could maybe just tell you about examples of how I have personally used the food bank lately, because that's really what tipped me off to the fact that we needed to have this jam session. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just going to go with it. There is a time bank member, Phil Ruvatuso. Do you guys know Phil? Probably some of you might know him. Phil, he's kind of a character. Phil, yeah, he's an interesting guy. He was always trying to come to Food Swap, and I hope you guys know about Food Swap. For those of you that don't, I'm just going to quickly show on screen as we go some of these, resources that are out there. Some of them are time bank related, some of them are outside of the time bank. But the Northwest Indiana Food Swap was started 5 years ago. I kind of call this my gateway drug to wanting to organize a time bank, because the people who come to food swaps are trading food with one another. No money is exchanged. It's hosted this year. This year was Unity in the Dunes began hosting that event. So the schedule is shown right up here on screen. The next one is going to be happening July 9th. They're always on a Sunday. They last from 3 to 5, and they're just a lot of fun. However, with food swapping, what you're doing is you're swapping one-to-one. So unlike time banking, where you just offer whatever service you want to offer, and then you can get it paid back from any member, food swap, you all come together, and it is kind of more of a barter type situation. But anyway, food swapping is great. That's something I was interested in. Phil was somebody who he has a lot of interesting connections and friends. Like, he has a friend evidently in the grocery business that kind of gives him what I'm going to call scratch and dent produce, the produce that, there's one bad apple in the bag of apples, and, Aldi's or Town and Country or whatever, they'll take it off the shelf and it will not be saleable because there's that one bad apple. Or you have a carton of eggs and there's one broken egg, they just get rid of the whole carton, and Phil's right there to pick it up. So he was kind of trying to bring some of this stuff to Food Swap. Food Swap, though, is homemade, homegrown, or foraged. And, his food did not fit any of those requirements. So it was just a little awkward, and I saw him really wanting to be a participant in the system, and I wanted to create a space that had a place for him to share. So at the last food swap on May 7th, what I said to him was, Phil, instead of trying to bring that stuff to food swap, because you've had your hand slapped a few times, that's not the way food swaps roll, bring it to my house, a day or two before, and I'll transform it for you. I'll make it into something that is now homemade, and I can trade some of that on your behalf, and then you can take what you want. Well, that went pretty well. And he has since, I think, dropped off groceries on my front porch maybe like 5-6 times. It's been insane. I mean, he'll say, can you use some mushrooms? And he'll bring me like an entire flat, like 12 containers of sliced button mushrooms. Okay, I can't eat that many mushrooms. I will try to preserve them. So I sauteed them in butter, salt, pepper, put them in bags in the freezer. But my freezer, I'm telling you, it is full. So I've been trying to like kind of, there aren't enough food swaps. There's not enough freezer space for me to preserve all the food that is kind of just personally being dropped off at my, doorstep. So I've reached out to Time Bank members and said, hey, can you use some of this stuff? Now I realize this isn't necessarily, local food like we're talking about. It's not homegrown. It's not, supporting a local farmer. But what I've tried to do very intentionally with all the savings that I'm racking up is then go to the Chesterton, farmers market, or go to the Valpo farmers market, go to any farmers market and buy more local food. Local food right now, quite frankly, is about the last thing I need, but I'm dedicated to supporting, the local farmers. So I do it anyway. But what I'm trying to figure out is how do we, kind of capture this food that would otherwise be wasted, get it to people that can preserve it, share it, love it. If we can't eat it, we can't transform it, feed it to worms to make compost, that kind of thing. And then the other key thing that's really been a game changer for me is something called the Indiana Hope Center. And I'm just going to put out there the stuff that might not be quote unquote normal, that you guys would know about, because I think that we're all on board with, we want to help local farmers. We want to help, everybody that we've mentioned, community gardens. But there are these kind of outlier pieces that I'm aware of, and I'd like to share and kind of knit them into solutions. The Indiana Hope Center is located in Grovertown, and I haven't been able to talk to somebody there that tells me exactly how they operate, but I guess from doing some internet research, what I found is they're what's kind of considered a salvage store. So they get stuff kind of like Phil is doing on an individual basis, but more shelf-stable items or freezer, items that can be frozen. So they don't have a produce section.
Kathy, I've actually been there.
Yeah, I have too. Who just said that, Christine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's really something.
They ask for a $5 donation. It's a year membership. They do have several freezers, so they have frozen chickens, frozen food products. Sometimes they have fresh fruit or vegetables that they might have received. They do have a small refrigerated section, but lots of shelf-stable food. It is kind of geared toward people who may have some financial constrictions, but as far as I know, they're open to everybody.
Yeah, they have a big sign that says everybody, welcome. And I think I've been there maybe 5 or 6 times now over the last few months. And I'm just fascinated by how it works. And then the other thing that they do is on your way out the door, they say, hey, please help yourself to any of our free items. And so I just could not believe all the great stuff I got. And I actually spent the time on one of my visits to look up what would the retail price be for each item that I took home. And some of these things were this. Can you guys see the spreadsheet that I've got up on screen? Okay. There's like saved 100%. Well, those were free items. So, down here at the average, it came out to be like 81, almost 82% savings off of retail. And yeah, I'm not somebody that absolutely needs it, but I'll tell you what, as a freelancer, my income is really, up and down and up and down. And so I do appreciate the savings, and I do appreciate, knowing about them as a tool to share for people who really need it. I believe that they do actually offer free food for those who really need it. They have free food distribution days where they go to, more food desert kind of places, or they'll go to a church, or they'll go to a, food pantry, and they'll offload, trucks of stuff. So anyway, that's just another thing that I think is pretty cool. It's kind of unique that we've got that somewhat within our, drivability distance. And so, for me personally, I've just really transformed the way that my household eats. A lot of what we eat is either stuff that I have foraged, that we grew in our own garden, that I got at Indiana Hope Center, or that, I get from somebody in the Time Bank, or, anything that doesn't fit one of those. I sure try to go to, farmers market. And it really hasn't been that hard to kind of get off the regular, the grid, I guess. And now I've got an abundance, and I really want and need to share that. So let me stop talking and just see who else, kind of feels led to say something. Anybody want to say anything on that?
Do they accept like donations too?
They do.
Not food, but just something, money or whatever.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Really feel you've gotten a good deal, then you give them a little extra.
Yes, absolutely. They've got a donate or get involved right on their website. And, they told me when I asked about that, because I almost did feel kind of guilty. I was like, hey, I don't need 82% off. I'm really, I'm vibing on it because I don't want that food to end up in a landfill. And I also appreciate the savings, and, I want to share it with people who do need it. And they said, you know what, financial donations are always welcome, but what we really need is people to donate their time as well, because they're all volunteer run, or almost all volunteer run. And so I haven't done it yet, but what I want to do is just go down there one day and donate the day. Where I thought if I could get a carload of time bankers to go down there, they said a lot of what they need is just pricing, boxes or packages and things like that, just writing prices on there. So anyhow, I just thought that was a pretty cool thing. So that's what's on my mind is, how to share, how to, unite people in the time bank to just make better use of what we've already got. And
That would be a great road trip.
What's that?
I said that would be a great road trip get-togethers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure would. Anne Shane Massey was in a meeting with me for planning the local food expo that happened back in March. And I knew that creating a local food hub, a local food system, was something that's been on her mind for a very long time. And I just held up I don't know how this came into my mind, but I knew I didn't have all the answers, but I held up one of my business cards. Of course, I can't find the right business card right now, but I'm like, I don't have all the answers, but I've got Band-Aids. I felt like my time bank membership was a Band-Aid, to create that system until there's a bigger system. We've got the ability to say, hey, you know what, I'm going down to the Indiana Hope Center anyway. Can I pick up some deals for you? Like I told Meenakshi about the deal on Trader Joe's organic coconut milk, which they had for 10 cents a can. I make a lot of, like Thai and Indian curries, and I thought maybe she did too. I bought her a whole case. So it was $2.40 for a case of organic, coconut milk. That's crazy. And just yesterday, she told me, do you want some of it back? I can't use all of this. It's just, I told the Shellhearts about it after the last member meetup that we were at. And they said, gosh, we went down there and we felt like we got such good deals that we bought $50 extra worth of groceries and dropped it off at the food bank. It kind of like unleashes this real abundant feeling. At least that's what it did for me. And I thought that was really cool. So instead of going to, Costco and spending a couple $100s for supersized, things of groceries, it was just a totally different feeling, shopping and kind of sharing food in this way. So I really want to let others talk. You guys are so interesting. And I know you're multitasking, but can you say anything about like efforts so far that have been made for the local food hub? I think you told me you pitched that at Big Cell some time ago, didn't you?
I did. The first year that Big Cell was around, I pitched a food hub idea. And it didn't go very well.
Well, do you want to say anything about, the ideas that you had around that, or kind of what's available?
I think there are two pieces. We know the demand is there. We know that people need food, and food access is not very good in certain areas of Northwest Indiana, particularly our urban areas, but we don't really have a local distribution system. And as far as local producers go, we're pretty limited as far as organic vegetables or just vegetables in general. And that's kind of been the piece that the Food Council is trying to work on to increase supply and make those connections, kind of like what the food bank does. And I know that we had just worked with the Legacy Foundation and Purdue Extension to write a large USDA grant that would, if we get it in September, we'll find out, we'll have funds for us to start a virtual food hub, which will eventually evolve into a brick and mortar food hub. So say some prayers that the USDA grants the Legacy Foundation, or awards the Legacy Foundation this grant, and we can get that rolling.
So tell me more about the food hub. You know, the particulars. If it's a virtual food hub, would it basically just be a place where local farmers could post their offerings, and then local people could arrange to get the food somehow? I mean, what exactly? I understand you're trying to address what I call the distribution bottleneck. There's a number of farmers trying to meet the demand for local food, and the demand right now is higher than the actual supply, but there's a distribution bottleneck, especially in the wholesale and restaurant price points.
Yes. Yeah, and not only that, a lot of the farmers in general have to do their own marketing and their own contacting and manage their own websites. And with a food hub, it kind of offloads that piece as well. So they can just focus on growing and then know that there's always some place that they can divert their extra surplus produce to that they don't already have lined up. The virtual food hub is pretty much what you just explained, where it's just a way for people to organize transactions, but there's no place to store food at that point because it's just virtual, obviously. But at some point, because there are surpluses and there needs to be, you know, some time in between to get it to who really needs it, ideally we'll have some refrigeration space. I know there was talk of the food bank in Gary and Maryville of being able to provide that, but that's still tentative.
And on that note, on Tuesday night, there was a person who teaches in Gary, and they're kind of working at, there's a lot of churches in that one area that they're looking for, and I think they maybe have some potential buildings for distribution in Gary for, well, they were talking about community garden kind of things, but, you know, this could expand into, you know, surplus food from restaurants and grocery stores. One thing that I wanted to address, you know, I've talked, you know, years ago about, you know, I think like one of the local grocery stores, you know, how come, you know, you're not, or are you donating? And then they say, no, we can't anymore because one person got some spoiled thing and got sick, so we're not doing it. Can we, you know, reapproach these grocery stores and places that provide food to, you know, try again? You know, let's try to get beyond the one incident and, you know, allow your abundance, you know, to be eaten and consumed instead of, you know, just thrown away. And or then the next step, even, you know, the composting thing as opposed to just throwing in the landfill. So,
Yeah,
was that a question? I'm not sure.
I think it's a really important piece to think about, and everyone's so sue happy nowadays. I know a lot of businesses are hesitant to give up spoiled food, or what they think is spoiled. It's not always spoiled. A lot of times we've overcome those situations with a simple contract, just saying, you're not liable, sign here, and then I'll take what you want.
And again,
Are you guys aware of?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Kathy.
No, you go ahead.
Are you guys aware that the Good Samaritan Law passed so that stores cannot be sued for food that they've donated, somebody gets sick on. So this Good Samaritan Law is official. It went into effect actually several years ago. So that we actually have a law that protects those entities from any sort of suit.
Cool.
So
Is that a national?
you can have them sign a waiver that probably makes them feel better, but legally they can't be held liable anyway. So that's good to know. I mean, if I could look up the information and provide documentation and send that out to you guys, then you could provide that to the grocery stores or whoever who would be donating and say, you know what, you do have legal protection, but offer the waiver also.
Yes, please send that.
Will Smith over in Milwaukee with Growing Power.
Will Allen,
Will Allen. Sorry.
the Fresh Prince.
A huge system of capturing food waste, and I wonder if we could try to I don't exactly know how he got going with all that. I know he had enough his own capital to invest, but if we could sort of do what they're doing.
Well, and I was really curious, like, how does legally the Indiana Hope Center do what they do? And I was looking up the other day, just like, how do you start a salvage grocery store? And I found, a few different resources. I can't find exactly the one that I was looking for right now, but maybe it is because of the, Good Samaritan Law. And when I signed up to become a member, I suspect there was probably something in there that was a hold harmless clause. I was like, here's my $5. I want in, so that kind of allowed me to do it. And even within the time bank, we're members helping members. $15 of every $25 membership goes right to volunteer insurance. It's not, hugely robust insurance, but, that helps, take some of the heat off of, these systems that are just kind of common sense. So again, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I would love for us to begin modeling some aspects of a local food system. What are the things that we can do right now today? We don't have to wait until a grant comes in to start living better, to start helping people to do some of these things. If we get a grant, certainly that helps us scale it. But that's what I'd really love to do is, just based on this really short jam session, can we come up with, a few action items or, ideas that we individually are willing to explore or implement that are going to help, others see, oh yeah, that wasn't that hard. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think it does. Kathy, can I chime in?
Of course. It's not the Kathy show.
I know, talking about grants, you're working with the Legacy Foundation. If something comes of it or whatever, we would love to have similar ideas for the Porter County Community Foundation. And also, if you maybe want to partner with Tall Tree on some growing programs or something, maybe we can have a little space there, doing some growing, composting, some of the stuff. It's just, we could throw out some ideas.
Great. And, just last Friday, I was up at the Unity Foundation in LaPorte County. I work with one local nonprofit that's more like arts oriented, but I was up in Michigan City anyway. I recently joined the board for the Center for Creative Solutions. They're kind of a neat group, and some of their members are now joining the Time Bank as well. So they're all about, as you would imagine, coming up with creative solutions. Another person that I met through there is Dale Cooper, who Christine met. Christine, wasn't Dale cool to work with?
Oh, very, yeah.
Isn't she great? And she actually went through Will Allen's program, right? Did she tell you anything about that?
No, how cool though.
Yeah, and she brought back a program to implement in LaPorte County, teaching local school kids aquaculture and all kinds of, really cool stuff. So I'm telling you, we have some great people, just within the Time Bank. One thing I wanted to circle back on, Anne, because you might be uniquely qualified to answer this. You mentioned farmers having to do their own marketing. And I know Sarah made kind of an announcement on Facebook saying that she was perhaps going to be moving. So I don't know if she's going to be in the area. And Anne, are you still with us? I know you said you were multitasking. So I don't want to put you on
I'm here.
Okay. But she was really doing like grapevine marketing, right? Was that
Yeah.
kind of supposed to be to fill that gap a little bit, to help farmers with their?
Yeah. She's super talented. She's got like 20 years of experience in marketing, and she's been doing that. But a lot of her clients, I think, are more out toward Fort Wayne and South Bend. I'm not sure how many she's picked up around here.
Okay. Because
A lot of her direct to, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to take this in too different of a direction, but Stephen and I have actually been talking about, and Scott, welcome to you, Scott, too. I saw you kind of sneaked in here. Scott's up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and he actually just joined the Time Bank as well. He has been participating in the business side of CoThrive, which started actually a year before the CoThrive Time Bank started. And what I've been looking at for some time is how to harness the power that some of these freelancers have during our downtimes, during our low periods. And, Charlotte, I worked with Charlotte as her marketing consultant first, and then we developed kind of this other, relationship, just because I see that, farmers have different margins, different needs, and I kind of had a soft spot for that. So anyway, I don't want to take this too far in that direction, but Stephen and I are actually in the middle of working out kind of how to do a virtual agency that would kind of feed leads, feed work to freelancers that are talented and that have downtime. And farmers certainly would be one group that we would love to work with if Sarah's already doing that. I haven't been able to talk with her recently about it, but I just don't want to not mention what she does. And I have no idea why I can't find her right this second. Do you have any idea what her website is?
It's Grapevine Local Food Marketing.
Local Food Marketing. Okay, maybe that's it. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I can't find that right away. Local Food. Here we go. Anyhow, I'm trying to give you a little shout out, Sarah, if you watch this later. I'm not easily getting to the website for some reason. But anyway, she started her own business, leaving the Grossbauer agency after 17 years as digital marketing vice president. So she's definitely somebody that I wanted to reach out to see if we could work with her and Stephen. Anyhow, that's kind of a separate conversation. Also, we got a little bit of a late start. Is there anybody that's able to stay past 8 that wants to? Because I am willing to do that. I don't, want to make anybody feel uncomfortable that they have to. But I think there's enough momentum here that if anyone's interested, I'd love to host. But anybody who has to leave at 8, who does need to leave at 8? Let me just put it that way.
I think this is what a lot of us do all day anyway.
Okay. Well,
I just took a call actually from my friend Stephanie Storer, who was on our Thought Jam previously about local food, and she was just asking me, we need eggs for our market tonight. There's a co-op market in South Bend at the Our Lady of the Road shelter, and it's supposed to be trying to bridge some needs for low-income communities. So far, the low-income community members aren't really on board with the local food, as I kind of alluded to earlier. And right now it's called Common Goods Grocery. That is an effort that has been going on for a while to try to make food affordable, local and affordable, but they also do bulk buying of non-local sources for food. But we were talking about doing a food spot there, and et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, that's
Cool. You know what? I got an idea. I got an idea of how we could do this. How many of you guys have played the string game? Has anybody played one of the string game at one of my member meetups? Pat has. Charlotte's raising her hand. I can't figure out how to see everybody at once, unfortunately. All right, so for those of you that don't know, and I finally found Sarah's website, so you're right, it's grapevinelocalmarketing.com. I just wanted to give her a little shout out because she's done some great work around local food marketing, and if this can help her in some way, I'd love to do that. But the string game is really fun. Basically, the way you do it is we can do this virtually, pretending that I have a string. It's just kind of easier to see how a local food system can work with the people in the room, or since, you know, we're a pretty big group, but still relatively small. Let's say that we can mention 1 degree of separation, you know, somebody outside the room that could help out with us. I'll just give you an example. Some of you know Damien from Native Roots Farms. You guys know Damien? Okay. When he was just...
I read.
What's that?
Oh, there was a big write-up in the newspaper about their farm, well, a little bit about their farm, and that they do it at the Coffee Creek every Wednesday evening.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he actually was an intern that came out of a program that Charlotte helped develop. So she works with 2 other farmers out like in the Michiana area. So that's a whole other connection. Damien so far is not a member of the Time Bank. I'd love to get him in there, but I just remember his first year at the market, it was after, at that point, he was at the Valpo market, and he had like a carload or a truckload of heirloom tomatoes that didn't sell. And he called me asking me, do you know anybody who could buy these from me? Like, you know, they're going to go bad. They're not going to make it until my next market day. And I mean,
You're the food hub, Kathy.
What's that?
You're a food hub.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of like asked to be a food hub in a way. And I mean, you know, I was in the middle of a work day. It wasn't like my job. There was no time bank, but I wanted to help him. So I put aside my marketing work. I picked up my cell phone and I was just calling, you know, anybody I could think of to say like, hey, will you buy tomatoes from this guy? And, you know, it wasn't a terribly efficient way to do it. I don't know what happened in that case, but I just thought, gosh, it just bothered me. I didn't want any farmer to be faced with that situation happening. So can I, you know, on the spot, just have restaurants that will always buy, you know, maybe eventually, but not today. What I could do today, though, is say, I know people from Food Swap that are excellent canners. I know people from the Time Bank that have trucks. Could we not get a time banker to pick up the extra produce that, you know, if it goes to the food bank, hey, I'm not trying to divert anything from food banks, but I think what I've heard, and I hope somebody could maybe chime in on this if I'm understanding incorrectly, is that sometimes food banks aren't particularly well equipped to take a huge shipment of all heirloom tomatoes. You know, they kind of need stuff to be a little shelf stable or, you know, need some flexibility. So how can we get that food that's really, really good food to be preserved, you know, not wasted? And frankly, a lot of the farmers I know, and I'm not including Damien necessarily in this, but a lot of farmers I know work with pretty small margins. And as much as they'd like to be, you know, great citizens in the community, they're not necessarily like able to just donate food all the time to a food bank, you know. So what are some other options for them? I'm not a farmer, so this is just a one-off story, but I gotta believe if it happened once, it happens, you know, regularly.
Have you approached some of the local restaurants, like Carlos, Don Quixote?
I could. He's not in the Time Bank right now, so I guess,
Yeah,
you know.
Carlos would be somebody who would be, I think he does grow some of his own food.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem with approaching restaurants individually is that they just don't have time to deal with, you know, an individual maybe even one time delivery of something. They need to have consistency. They need to have some sort of regular delivery. They know what's on their menus. They know what they need. And they don't want people just stopping by and saying, here, you know, they have to have consistency. They have to plan. You know, planning is their business model. They can't just deal with individual farmers who have one load of butternut squash that they need to get rid of. So yeah, I mean, my suggestion, yeah, theoretically restaurants can absolutely use local food, but they have to have some planning.
Kathy,
So, yeah.
do you know if Nana Claire's has some sort of platform where they communicate with their people who use the kitchen?
No, but you know, you were reading my mind. I think you kind of heard like where my mind was going during some of those planning meetings is for those of you that don't know, Nana Claire's is a commercial kitchen here in Valpo that rents out space. And I have not really been there yet, but I have been thinking like that's a missing piece. Like, okay, and I'll put out an idea and you tell me if this is where you were going with it. If it's not, then please fill in the gaps or tell me. But, you know, basically we've got other farmers who are members. For instance, I'm going to just use Fairstream Farms because Daniel Fagerstrom, he is a member of the Time Bank. He is a food swapper. So this is his website, is fairstreamfarms.com. So I took it back to saying, hey, let's try the string games. Let's pretend that Daniel is here. He is one of the people that's at Coffee Creek Market on Wednesdays. Let's say, and I actually had this conversation last Wednesday with Daniel, not last night, but last Wednesday. It was raining. It was just pouring down rain. I almost didn't want to go, but I'm like, you know what? Those guys made it out there. I'm going to go and I'm going to buy something. So he had radishes, he had bok choy, I did buy some bok choy. He had all kinds of stuff that would be great, let's say, for kimchi. And I told him, I said, you know what? I don't personally need, you know, a million radishes and all kinds of bok choy. I bought, you know, at top dollar, the regular market rate, the bok choy that I needed and could consume for my household. I said, if it's 6:30 or 6:45, when you're getting close to the market close time of 7, if you have quantity that you want me to come and pick up, I'm not in a position to buy it all from you, but I would pick it up from you. And he said he likes kimchi. I'm like, okay, I personally have never made kimchi, but I know that Judy Allen in the Time Bank is really, really good at making kimchi. Nicole from Food Swap is good at making kimchi. I bet other people on this call are probably good at making kimchi. He would really love for those ingredients to be turned into kimchi. I said, either I will personally learn how to make kimchi, or I will reach out to a Time Bank member who can do that, and then I will deliver back to you, or that person will deliver back to you kimchi that you can consume in your own household, you know, during the winter months or whenever the heck you want, because he really likes it. He doesn't have time to make it. He doesn't know how to make it. And he said, well, that would be great. I didn't get the call, so we didn't end up doing that deal. But I'm thinking, how could we do that, you know, on a more regular basis where we work with the people that we've got already in play? Now, what I'm talking about would not be for commercial consumption, but where I think Anne might be going with it is if we looped in Nana Claire's commercial kitchen in Valpo, instead of coming to Kathy's household kitchen, which is good enough for food swappers and good enough for time bankers, if we could bring it back to a commercial kitchen, then I believe that's something that you could actually package, and then Daniel or whoever could sell that, you know, packaged kimchi maybe at a farm stand. Is that kind of where you're going with it, Anne?
Yeah, and that like home-based chefs might be more equipped to or flexible to take on these one-off produce buys.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Gourmet Goddess. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. She was at Fed in March, the Food Council's event, and she actually uses produce from Damien now after she met him there. And she is a home-based chef. She does small catering and personal cooking out of the South Shore Visitors Bureau kitchen.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, so I know there's like people like that out there who.
I did meet her, you know, and there you go. Like I said at the beginning, sometimes you go to these events, you meet somebody, and then you don't follow up or you don't cement that connection, so you forget that you knew. So, you know, I don't know that we're all of a sudden going to be able to do food expos like every month or every week. That's a pretty big deal in the making. But I'm hoping that by offering these, you know, virtual types of events like we're doing right now, then these can be the Band-Aids that kind of help create that conversation that can be shared. Again, for anybody, you know, joining late or didn't realize that we are recording this, this will be uploaded to YouTube, and then it will also be put up on this Google spreadsheet that is the Co-Thrive Jam. Okay, I'm having trouble finding it now. bit.ly, bit.ly/Co-Thrive Jam is kind of the open, what's it called, open space technology that we're using to manage these meetings. And all the links have been updated now. My apologies that got corrupted. But here we go. We've got, you know, today's link. And once I have that recording, you'll be able to find the recording link right from here. You click on that, that'll be YouTube. It'll take you to the YouTube channel that hosts all the previous recordings as well. So if you've got something that you want to talk about for a future date, you're welcome to go ahead and just put in your name, topic, question. That's what this is for. It's not always going to be about food, but any big idea that can help the community or anything you want to explore, it shouldn't just be about, you know, one person's business or something that helps just, you know, one person. And if you want to deep dive on a topic, you can go to the second tab that says deep dive and kind of specifically say what you want to talk about on an ongoing basis, not just one, you know, thought jam session. So for instance, Charlotte hosted a session a few weeks ago called Breaking the School to Prison Pipeline, Helping Disadvantaged Kids in Our School System. She did a great job of bringing in some people. So certainly I'll jam with anybody, but if you've got some people that are a little bit expert around the topic, it's kind of better to give it some weight, you know, give it a little advance notice and invite those people. But anyway, that's how this works, is this kind of gets the ball rolling. The conversations that start here go over to Lumio to, you know, become part of a forum thread so that we can keep things going. And then the time bank becomes the, you know, the mechanism by which we can measure our individual efforts and kind of see where are the gaps so that we can bring people in. Anyway, let me just kind of be quiet and see if anybody else has got something brilliant to say. No pressure, but it doesn't even have to be brilliant. It can just be anything you want to say that you've learned or you've enjoyed today.
Well, I don't think this is brilliant, but I would love to do more of what Anne is doing over there in terms of the whole food hub idea and the food council over here in South Bend. So is there some sort of, Anne, did you have some sort of template that you're following or way to get people together to get this going? I personally couldn't be in charge of it like you are, because I'm totally engaged with my learning farm and producing some food and trying to do that. So I need to be part of an organization that is not formed.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did find out that Elkhart has a local food council. They had a kickoff, I think, last week. I can loop in that information because that's probably closer to you than we are, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, okay, there's you guys, and then there's a blank space for us, and then there's Elkhart.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily blank in terms of activities. I mean, like I said, there's a number of co-ops that are started. There's, you know, restaurants interested in local food. There may be even a commercial idea, I don't know, but we don't have any communication. We don't really talk to one another. Everybody's sort of just doing their own thing.
Yeah, we started with a facilitator. We actually had a professional facilitator. I wasn't one of the founding members. I came on a little bit later. But a group of people decided to do a small event, a small networking event with about 100 people called a food summit. And then from there, they just figured out who would have the time and the energy to devote to creating the food council. And then they brought in a facilitator from Purdue Extension who kind of helped them develop their bylaws and their mission. And so that wasn't, I mean, because that can make or break a group in the beginning. And that facilitator kind of helped launch the group.
Can I make one suggestion? Anne, I'd love to have you in the time bank. And I think, getting a local food council started in another area is something that, needs its probably own session, because that's a big topic and probably not one that's going to be completely relevant for everybody on the call. Not to minimize the importance, but what I would say is that would be a perfect way to honor Anne's time with time bank hours, is to say, hey, will you take a call with me? And I'm not just asking you to be a nice person. I'm saying you've got specific knowledge about how to do that. Can you help me, understand what that process was, right? Like, services offered to one another don't have to be anything that's ever going to be repeated, or something that you have to say, oh, one of my services I'm going to continually offer is how to get a, food council started, right? But I think that would be a great deep dive that you two could have individually, or Charlotte, if you wanted to invite some other people from your area, we could do something separately on that. But I threatened you guys with a string game before, and then we didn't actually do it. So I'm wondering if we can do a modified version. The string game is pretty visual, because what you do is you have a ball of yarn generally. I say what I need, and then I ask who would like, or who could help me fulfill that service, and then I throw them the string game. Looks like Anne's driving. Everybody's like on different cameras, so we're not going to be throwing string. But Christine, why don't I start with you? Can you just tell us one need that you have, and also one offer that you'd like to give, around food?
Where do I start?
Yeah, I know you're going to
as
have more
far
than
as I
one, but
need-
just pick one.
Start with someone else first. I have to think about that for a second.
Okay. Anybody else have one ready to go?
Me.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
A need and a want? What was that? Okay. I need compost. That's
I have
always
compost.
Oh, all right.
See how fun that is? It's like you ask and it shall be given unto you. Good. Okay.
How much do you need? We can talk later.
Okay. Awesome.
Hi, Tegan. Hi.
I have compost.
We also need
All right.
compost for our plants.
And I can offer how to start a food council.
There you go.
Plenty of home canned goods.
You have plenty of home canned goods to give?
Yes.
Okay, so you'd be great for a food swap, because you're always prepared. If you have canned goods, you can always come and diversify your pantry.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, if you can't come to the food swap yourself, I have done this for people before. If you tell me the kinds of foods you're interested in, I'm happy to swap for people. There's something I'll offer.
Cool.
All right, so way to go. You see how easy that is. So Christine already said, I have compost, so that's technically one service that she offers. And then Christine, have you thought of a need? Well, I heard you say a need before. You said you wished you had land.
Yeah, for my nonprofit, what I need is space to actually do more composting. On my
Okay.
personal property, I actually have 7 compost bins. They're in different states of decay. 2 of them are ready to be harvested, but in order for me to be able to work with local restaurants collecting their pre-consumer and post-consumer waste, I need much more land than my little suburban plot.
And Pat's
So I'm
hand is
looking
going
for-
up crazy. Pat's like
Yes,
jumping out of her seat.
And where does this land have to be?
Well,
Where does
in Valpo would be, in or near Valpo would be best. That's where I have some connections to some of the local restaurateurs. So if I could work with them first and have someplace in the Valpo area where it would be easy to transport the pre and post consumer foods
How
and
big
paper
is
waste.
the land?
I can't hear you.
How big? How big of land?
Several acres, 5 acres I think would be minimal, 10 would be fabulous. And then also related to that, you know, I need a truck, I need bins, I need feet on the ground to do the collection. So I'm really in the really beginning stages of creating this nonprofit and starting to work with the restaurant. So land would be the first thing.
How about leasing part of Ann's property? She's got 11 acres. She doesn't know what to do with it yet.
She's in Crown Point, so it's not exactly close to Valpo restaurants. But
I'm in Jackson Township in northern Jackson Township, which is, you know, like Chesterton area on the east side. I have land. I'd be interested to know, you know, like what's the scope of this, because we rent out our farm land to a farmer, but I would love to kind of start moving in a more productive and natural way with some of the farmland, but I kind of need to know, because I share this land with my sisters, and we'd have to kind of know, you know, what kind of scope, you know, how long of a decay time they anticipate, or even like, you know, what kind of truck, you know, would be coming, how would they access an area? Or,
you know what, there's going to be a lot of questions, but why not say, okay, now I've made this identification with another person in the time bank, I'll give Pat an hour just to like to be able to come out and check out her space to see if it works, you know?
Absolutely,
Yeah, and so I also want to say Meenakshi kind of has a hand in this. I had looked at a property a little bit to the south of me, 2 doors down, kind of with that same idea in mind, because I also am obsessed by composting. It was like only 1.5 acre property, but it was listed for like $80,000. The house was really in bad shape. There wasn't much value there. So just to buy 1.5 acres, that's too much. But the good news that came out of that is I met my neighbor, and my neighbor wants to join the time bank, and she's got not 5 acres, but she lives, you know, I'm right off of Campbell, so not too far from Valpo restaurants. She said, I would love to have worms. I would love to learn composting. She's, you know, putting fruit trees out there. She wants help. She's like, I don't know her age, but she's, you know, little not able to do it all herself. So she's like, tell me about time banking. How would that work? And Christine, she came to your permaculture workshop too. So
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, she was in the audience.
She sat near the front. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Shell Hearts, I know they're trying to buy like a 26 acre farm on the south side of Valpo. And, you know, Jennifer, I think, has some ideas of how to like weave that into the community. So if they get that farm, that would be yet another thing. So land, you know, it's going to be tricky, but we can work on it, assuming that we nail the land thing, or that we could try just, you know, maybe a small sample. You know, my neighbor told me just 2 days ago, try whatever you want. I'm open, use my land. You know, how do I do it? So
how many acres do you have?
Just like 1.5 acres or something, but it's really close to Valpo. I mean, it's right, you know, right on Campbell. So very, very close. And it would be kind of between you, Christine, and Valpo restaurants, you know. So
yeah, I know exactly where it is. I actually stopped by the property and looked at it and wondered if it would be something we could use for permaculture somehow. But I like the idea of possibly using it for compost, especially if that house gets torn down and there's some modifications to the land. It has some possibility.
And I don't have, you know, the funds to buy that right now, but the house that's just north of that is my neighbor, and she's just like, hey, I want compost, you know, do composting on my land. So even if we don't have, you know, the big win, that's how I met her, was by looking at that house. So anyway, she's already verbally given permission. Then you said bins. So what do you make bins out of? Like pallets? Could you use pallets or?
No. Well, I don't know how much detail you want to go into right now. I don't know if we're straying too far from topic.
Let's just try
But
to get a few.
collection bins.
Okay. Oh, collection bins. Okay.
Collection bins for the restaurants to have at their location so that they have somewhere to store it between the times that we come and pick up the pre and post consumer compost. Uline is a company that makes a small 35-gallon, it looks like a mini garbage bin. It's got a flip lid and it's got wheels on it. Those run about $80 a piece. So this is where I would need to look for some grant money so that those bins could be purchase a pickup truck to haul the
Okay,
food scraps in.
can I stop you there for a second? Because we're trying to do the things that we can do today. Like, again, I don't have like grants and everything else, but if we could shift it to like, okay, here's a need that I have right now today. If I have a time banker that has a truck that would be willing, to do that pickup. That's what I'm trying to do. That would be
fabulous. And then
it's
I
just
would love to be able to see Anne's property, see if I could offer some permaculture design ideas for her. I would love to talk with your neighbor again to see if how we could make that work for her to be the place to compost.
And again, I just, I know it kind of takes some practice, but with time banking, you don't need to come up with the thing that you're going to return as a service to that person. You just do what you do and they take out whatever service they want from whomever. Okay. So you don't need to really worry about you having the thing that she needs. You just say, hey, great, you're willing to let me do this. Awesome. This is what it's worth to me. I will give you this much time. And then it's up to her to look and see what she needs, right? Charlotte?
That's awesome.
Can I suggest from what Catherine said that Catherine has a need that she hasn't identified yet because she hasn't been hanging around with enough organic farmers. She has a need to convert her, I assume, conventional farmland into organic farming of some.
Oh, are you talking about, you're talking about me,
Pat.
actually.
Yeah.
The farmland. But I'm here at Catherine's house.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this is Pat Jackson.
Yeah.
I need to convert, something to something more organic. Yeah, that's a big question. But if I can even start with like a small corner of it and develop something that.
Well, I actually had a farmer approach me who has 10 or 12 acres up near South Bend. And they are very actively seeking some sort of lease agreement with organic farmers. And he called me and said, do you know any organic farmers that would want to lease this land? And I was really excited because of the proximity to town and the idea of having possibly multiple small organic growers located on that land. So I guess I would be willing to offer, in the spirit of Time Bank, to Pat, I would be willing to offer some ideas that I have researched. How many acres are we talking about here, Pat?
Well, the whole farm is actually 70 acres.
Okay.
But
so 70
I'm looking up.
Is wonderful. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that I could offer to get your 70 acres out of chemical, industrial, agriculture, producing a minimal income for you, probably, at fairly high environmental cost. And, the fact that you're on this call makes me think that you would possibly be open to that once you've identified the need, which I'm trying to prod you a little bit politely to make that a need, to have some guidance so that you can still maintain income equal to or possibly above what you're getting off of that land. Because in farming and food production, land is one of the biggest obstacles that we have in getting more small organic farms going. And so anyways, that I would offer that guidance, and possibly I've encouraged you to offer that need or to express that need.
But
Yeah, we'll need to connect. Yeah.
this is why I really
Cool.
love to explore these, needs and wants. Is like sometimes you pick up on a need that you heard, and I kind of miss that. And if you've got it, you've got it. But the only way that we're going to know is if we spend time together. Our world is great. It's a way to record the exchange. But I think to develop trust and to develop complex systems, we have to talk to each other. Ideally, we'd all be in a room together, but that's sometimes a little hard to pull off as well, right? One other land idea I want to throw out there is the Art Barn. They are an organizational member, and Julia Homas and Sharon Angelina are both associated with that. They're in Jackson Township as well, kind of further south from you, Pat.
Yeah.
I think they have, I want to say 80 acres, and they've got like a little community garden over there too. I think they might be game to do something. I think they need some kind of revenue production, right? So if they could convert some of what they've got into food production, that might be interesting. So if we could, go ahead.
So that's a great idea. Jan, who used to, own the art barn and passed away some time back, she gifted all that land to keep it kind of running. And if they could do something that would really be helpful to sustaining the place too, I think that would be great. They'd have to bring it before their board and stuff like that, but I think that's a great idea.
Cool. And so I just think there's so many things that we can do before we get the grant, before we have, everything in place. I mean, that's the stuff I really get excited about, is what can we do right now? And then, I need to get better at this, as Charlotte has already said, but recording hours on Our World can really show maybe a grant making board or entity that, hey, we've got the volunteer hours, we've got the interest, like we're doing this with people power. So I haven't done that yet, but I think if you are writing a grant, if you can say, hey, I'm part of this organization, and here are the members that we've got that bring these kind of skills and these kind of hours that we've already dedicated toward food projects, maybe that will help you. And if we're afraid to document, then we don't really get credit. So let's all vow to be a little freer with who we give credit, to, and things we take credit for.
I agree. I'm actually in a grant writing process right now, and I'm documenting volunteer hours here at the farm. And the grant that we talked about at the other Thought Jam, I would like to bring in the time bank as an integral part of that grant proposal. And this would be a great way to show how that time bank brings value to the grant. So
good. Yeah. So anybody that hasn't spoken yet want to share like a need or a want? And poor Scott is up in Milwaukee, so he's probably feeling a little like a fish out of water, because we are kind of talking about some things that require some local geography.
Well, but Milwaukee, that's where Will Allen and his crew are, right? So.
Yeah, totally.
No, he's got a lot going on there. I think I've kind of followed him from over his years, and I think he started with just doing composting as his core, initial process of getting worms that Kathy is familiar with. And then from there, he branched into aquaponics and hoop houses and urban farming and, downtown areas where there's just abandoned lots. So I think some of the things I'm just thinking about as I listen in is, taking the food, either it's raw food from farmers or restaurants, and then, finding a connection with either a canner or someone that can convert it into something that can be sold. Seems like one tier. And then certainly if it's food waste, well, that could be put into a composting, activity. And then also having, some sort of network that makes it easy, like it came up earlier, is just having either a bin on site or just, an instant kind of action where you say, well, I've got, X amount of food, can you take it? And someone will show up and, haul it away just so that, whoever has the food doesn't have to work hard to make that connection, and then maybe possibly give them, something back, like canned product or finished product, as a kind of incentive to, call again.
Cool. I just want to give Scott a little shout out too. He has a full-time job as a graphic designer. I've known him for many, many moons when I used to live in Milwaukee back in the 90s. But he developed this Co-Thrive logo for us, and he was nice enough to include the worms in the logo. So instead of snakes like a caduceus, he's got the worms, so it's about building the great soil. And thanks for representing there, Scott. And Stephen and I do have some ideas we want to talk to you about, more dedicated toward marketing, for farmers and other maybe non-traditional marketing clients. So I'll loop back with you on that kind of separately. But know that you are in elements of this, even if it's not maybe the general interest part for the whole group.
Well, that could be a need that I could identify as a good logo. So, Scott, I need that.
Sure.
There you go. Well, Scott is, I think, the most recent member in the time bank, so he should be activated in there, and you've seen his work. He's
I don't think I have that typed as one of my needs, but that is a need that I have. So if you wanted to do that for me, I would give you credit.
I'll make a note of it. Sure.
And we do have to get a
Kathy,
little.
can I chime in?
Yeah, please.
I also do need a logo for my nonprofit organization. I've just kind of taken one off the internet that will suffice, but if Scott has the creative inclination and would like to create a logo for my permaculture nonprofit, I would love to talk with you about that, Scott.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You're going to be a busy guy, Scott. So we'll have to think of some good things we can offer you, being, in a distance. But well, maybe that's a good thing to do. Can you think of anything, Scott, that you need remotely? And it might not be somebody on this call, but I'll go that 1 degree of separation and see what I can think of.
Well, I don't know. It's a little tough to come up with something. I guess just, new connections is the biggest thing. So, finding people that have needs for, graphic services, I guess is the one I can come up with. I'm not exactly like a food producer. We have just, 6 tomato plants that our neighbor brought over in the backyard. So, something a little bit off the food end might be easier for me to take advantage of, and also being in Milwaukee.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being remote, at least for now, it is a little tough to kind of plug into the food, but we'll hopefully be able to get there. So think on it. How about you, Catherine? You've been a little quiet. Can you think of any need and a want?
Yeah, need-wise for me, the first one that comes to my mind is the whole transforming your food thing. My mother always canned and did all those things, but it isn't something that I learned from her. Well, she's been gone a long time. And I know so many people who are like myself, where we feel like we have this desire to help with things like that and no confidence whatsoever in what we're doing with it. So it would be wonderful to learn from people who do those sorts of things confidently. More of the cooking and the canning and things that to me just are not my very strong suit.
Well, I can personally offer that. I have a pressure canner. I do water canning. I've been doing that since I was knee high, and nobody's gotten sick yet on any of my canned goods. So I've got a good track record. So I do that. Judy Allen, if you know Judy, she also does that. I think Anne just said that she does that. She's not yet in the time bank, but hopefully within a very short time she will be. But I know that we've got multiple people that offer that and would love to do that for you. So transforming well, Christine also, I don't know that she has that as a service offer, but I know she is like pro at that. So what other things about transforming?
Yeah, I love cooking and canning, dehydrating, fermenting.
There you go.
Sorry?
Dehydrating also, Christine does? So that's
dehydrating, fermenting, canning, all sorts of food
And that makes
preservation
sense,
techniques.
you
Yeah.
know, people who have great recipes and love to cook, that is not a medium I feel creative or fun or anything like that in. It's like, ugh. I would like to know how to do that better.
Okay, can I say something that I want to do? This might be like one of the whole reasons I even wanted to host this. What I realize is I love like making food for people. You know, when I get a whole bunch of food from Phil or from the Indiana Hope Center, I get a great deal on, you know, coconut milk. I want to feed everyone that doesn't have time to cook. I mean, I love cooking. Like, I love that show Chopped. I love it when they just open their baskets and they're like, this is what I've got. What can I make?
Did you move next door to me, Kathy?
I wish I could. If we can get somebody to maybe earn hours by trucking stuff back and forth, you know, I don't know who does that, but
I just need to have somebody like you living next to me to make up all the vegetables that I'm growing and don't have time to cook them. Because
yeah, that's what I really want to do. I mean, I'm not talking about doing it commercially, but just doing it for people that know me, like me, trust me, you know, that I'm preparing things in a clean way and you know, that I'm not going to give you bad stuff. I love feeding people, and I can't store all the food that I'm making in my freezer and in my refrigerator. So if I don't have a system for that, it's a little insane to keep getting, you know, food in. So I am happy that, you know, I think I gave food to maybe 5 or 6 different time bankers last week that came to me either free through Indiana Hope Center or free, you know, through Phil or just wherever. But I mean, I'm talking about food that's produced in a way that is not costing me a whole heck of a lot. So I'd love to add value to somebody that would otherwise be ordering Chinese or ordering pizza, that's spending money and probably, you know, ordering something that might not be so healthy. So anyway, I would love to do that.
Yeah, just to kind of a side note on that though, you know, with the canning, you know, you get all the free stuff, but then you gotta have enough jars and lids and rings. And it's kind of like, well, okay, the rings and the lids are costing, you know, like 25 cents each almost, you know, and it's kind of like, well, you know, if you can get a can for 45 cents of the tomatoes, you know, how much, you know, it just kind of, that's kind of an issue too.
Yeah.
For me, sometimes with containers, and is it really worth my time to can? And then, you know, with the containers, and then you run out of jars after a while.
Well, let me answer that for you, because there is a way for food, for time banking to interact with things that actually have hard costs. Sarah Hyland, again, she also offers this when she's not super busy. She seems to be super busy lately. But, you know, on days when I work in Chicago, those are like 13-hour days. I leave at 6 something in the morning. I don't get home until 7 something, you know, at night. And that would be a night that I would personally be tempted to, you know, call and order pizza if I didn't have something prepared. One time she brought me by lentils, rice, home-baked bread, salad, homemade dressing, and she gave me my bill for $5.63, which was like, you know, I trust Sarah so much to be fair and everything, but she was like, I was making this anyway for my own, you know, household. So this incrementally is what it cost me for raw ingredients. And that's great. That's fine. You can totally do that. So you can track hard cost and, you know, just make an agreement with a time bank member that they would reimburse you for hard costs. The other way to do it, like the very first trade I did was with Stephen Donaco's girlfriend, Tanya. And she is a raw vegan baker. She's awesome. If you guys want to try her raw vegan desserts, they are out of this world. And I was happy to pay her for ingredients. And she said, you know, I buy it in bulk, like just maybe give me a little extra time. You know, I don't have a lot of time. So if you can just give me maybe 2 hours instead of an hour, the hour of time would be worth it for me, because she knows she could take that hour and maybe get a massage or get, you know, something like that. So you can get really creative. I also want to say that a time banker came by last week. Bye, Charlotte. Thanks for coming. June came by. I don't know if you guys know June, but she does food swaps. She's in the time bank, and she picked up, some of the food that I offered. And she said that she met somebody from Free Cycle who gave her free jars, who said, I've only ever given jars to one other person, Kathy Sipple. Do you know her? And she's like, I do. So I probably got 200 or 300 free jars from maybe 3 or 4 different people on Free Cycle. So, there are creative ways of getting around that. And I have so many jars now that I'd be happy to give some of those away for time, because I don't know that I can fill them all. And at Food Swap, and just in case you want to try food swapping, Pat, and I'd love for you to try that. One way around that, we don't exchange money, but if you're giving away a jar of something, let's say you give away a quart jar, you can kind of be intentional about your swaps and try to get a quart jar of something, that you swap for. Yeah, and over time, it just seems to kind of work out, because there's so many canners that are attracted to that I've really not seen that put a dent in my jars. If anything, I feel like I collect them. And some people that don't they bring their jars for others and say, hey, people just take them, have at it, whatever. And the people that in time banking I've given containers to, they brought them back. Like Meenakshi brought me lunch yesterday in a container that I had given her the week before. So it wasn't even a particularly expensive container. But I feel like the people that are attracted to this, they're pretty intentional, and they're really trying, to kind of do the right thing and be fair with one another. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Anybody else have like a need or a want that they haven't expressed?
Kathy?
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to chime in really quick, and this might be helpful for some other people. If you do food preservation or cooking and you need to freeze, I host raw milk and meat deliveries every month at my house. So I have 4 freezers and 3 fridges.
Oh my gosh, wow.
If you ever need cold storage in a pinch, I'm here.
That's great. So that's something you could earn time bank credit for.
Yep.
Cool. Well, and I don't have this yet, but I'm really curious to see if this is going to work out. My husband is actually looking at a building to house his business in Hobart that is 16,000 square feet, and they only need about 9 or 10. So like I might end up not with necessarily freezer space, but just space to, let's say, store those barrels or those things that Christine wants to get, from Uline. Like I was just on Craigslist yesterday looking those up to see about making a worm tower, because I don't know, I got a crazy idea to do that. And, I found some food containers, storage containers that might not be exactly the right thing that she wants, but they're often used for wine barrels. And, at the high end, they want $50, but you can get them for like 10, so if I could ever get a quantity of those, I'd love to be able to store those in, a place. So that's just, one other kind of crazy thing. But you can see that like between all of us, we actually do have quite a lot, so some of us have more time, some of us have more money. I just want to get creative about how we knit this together to do some trades. So it's one thing to talk about it, but I'd love to just get a commitment, like from the people who have shared needs and wants or services. Can I get a commitment from you that you'll actually go on to Our World and exchange, make an exchange in the next few weeks? Because if we do it, we're going to build it. It's the neat thing about actively creating this thing is it can start with small steps.
All right.
Cool.
I'm in.
You're in? Okay.
I'm in.
Pat, do you have a question, or Catherine has a question?
Oh, one little thing to add in the services thing. Like I was reading your post about how last month was kind of hard for you because you weren't feeling well and all that sort of thing. That's kind of my bailiwick, is that, I know an awful lot about how energy flows in the human body. And for me, like allergies and colds and flu and all that kind of thing, I just look at people and I have a very natural instinct for it. I know how to make you not suffer through this so much. So that's where I can add value is, and I can help people be healthier. and overcome things quicker, that kind of thing.
Very cool. Well, I know from getting your healing that it was awesome. This particular thing was like in an emergency room, like hospital kind of cardiologist kind of thing, or else you would have been on my speed dial. So yeah, I just had some kind of like, I don't usually go into the, medical system, but this past month I had to. I do want to also mention, because she's been previously interested in food and healing, is Marilee Snyder-Nisiak. Do you guys know her? No, she's up in Michigan City, and she's got quite a large land parcel. Let me see if I can find her website real quick. She calls it Sage Spirit Terra. And Catherine, I'd just be really curious to see what you guys might be able to do together. She's into the Young Living, but she does a lot of things. She does like a drum circle. She does, I don't know if this is the right website. It doesn't seem like it is. Okay. Jennifer, okay. I think she's got multiple websites somehow, and I'm just not on the right thing. But this is a little picture of her land and her lodge. She calls it Sacred Sanctuary. So I just think somehow she might enjoy being a part of all of this. So Marilee Snyder-Nisiak is her name, and I'd love for you guys to reach out to her, anybody who feels led to do that. Okay, so I know we're coming up on 2 hours now, so we should probably think about wrapping it up. I feel like I could talk to you guys all day long, but people are starting to drop out. I just don't want it to be uncomfortable for anybody. So any parting thoughts, anybody?
I'm just feeling much more empowered. So I'm really thankful that you organized this. So thank you, Kathy.
Hey,
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
you're very welcome. And just know, again, that spreadsheet is open to any of you. You guys are all, thought leaders. So if you've got something that you particularly want to explore, again, you can get there through bit.ly/co-thrive jam. And you can claim a spot, and we can further the discussion around something that's of particular interest to you, either a deeper dive into this subject or something completely different. Like Catherine, I would love to maybe do one about natural healing. How do we map the systems to get natural health be more of a thing? Would that be of interest for you?
Yeah.
How about?
Very definitely.
How about maybe give us 2 weeks to pull together some other, thought leaders to jam with? Like if we did it on the 15th, is that a date that you could make? Or you
I think so.
You can think about it. I won't put you on the spot.
Yeah, I would have to look at my calendar, but I know I'm doing a workshop that's very much geared around that sort of thing on the 17th. So
you might have to focus. Yeah. Okay. Well,
it's a pretty good time for it, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. So I just keep, and maybe, I'd love to do one maybe even on composting particularly. It seems to get the short shrift on all the food expos, and I'm really, really passionate about that too. So, Christine, just know that I'm down with that. Or if you want to do one on permaculture, or community gardening, we can look at that. I really into art as well. I think art is something that really makes the world go round and something we need to, do a little better. And many of you on this call, I think, are multi-talented and you've got, art skills. So we can look at that too. Anyway, these are the things that are in my heart. And this is probably my favorite hours that I spend all week, or some of them, except the time I spend in my garden. So thanks for making time to be here. And maybe I could take a little quick test too. Like I did have some health challenges last week, so I'm a little bit behind on some of the planning. We had originally reserved the art barn for Saturday, what was that, 10th? To do kind of an extended member meetup potluck. And I haven't been able to do any marketing on it, really. I'm just curious, like, would that be a date that you guys would be available or interested in getting together to bring, maybe a dish and just kind of see the art barn? And
It's a Saturday at what time?
we had kind of reserved it for the whole day, but I think that would be a little much. Maybe if we made it somewhat longer, like 12 to 4, so people could drop in, or even 12 to 5, just, drop in, spend a little time, go, you wouldn't obviously have to be there the whole time, but kind of facilitating a little bit longer member meetup, more of a festive, summery time.
Where's the art
Well,
barn?
Catherine and I believe in person-to-person contact is a little more strong and gets the energy going a little better and stuff like that.
You know what?
So
It's not going to be an either or. It's always going to be a both and. I started as a virtual community, and Scott, for instance, in Milwaukee could not join us if everything was, just brick and mortar. So there are a lot of cool thought leaders outside of our region, but, obviously since those of us that live near each other do value getting together, I thought it could maybe serve as just a questions about our world, kind of do a deeper dive on, hey, Christine, you want ramp seeds. I've had those for you for I don't know how long. We just haven't brought it. We could even do kind of a seed swap, plant swap, whatever, just kind of have some fun. I'm just trying to decide if I do that or I don't do that because I haven't marketed it yet. So
But just so you know, I work on Saturday, so I wouldn't be able to make it, but I would really love to, because I have so many seeds I would be willing to share, and I would love to talk to people about composting, permaculture, and meet people face to face that I haven't met yet. But the 10th wouldn't work for me. I'm always available on Sundays, though.
On Sundays,
I don't know if that's open for other people's schedules.
Yeah, it's partly like the venues that make themselves available for free and kind of working around their times, but good to know. And we'll work on it. We'll work on trying to, diversify our dates and offerings. But okay, so I'm still a little on the fence if I do it, not do it. I want to have another meetup. It's just, it does require some time and effort. The last one that we did at the Art Barn was not very well attended. But hey, Pat and Christine joined from that. So it's quality, not quantity.
Hey, Kathy. Kathy?
Yes.
The food council, we had 2 meetups last month. We accidentally overlapped with the green drinks. We didn't mean to do that, but we're going to have 2 in June. They're usually on a Wednesday or Thursday night. One is going to be in Gary and the other will be in Michigan City.
Cool.
So we can, there's space for that kind of networking too there.
Okay, great. And yeah, ideally, I would love to just layer on Time Bank with all these other things. Like, to me, there's a lot around Food Council that overlaps. At least I see it. So, if we could just team up sometimes, it's like, does it have to be separate, or could we just say, hey, there's a Time Banker contingent on this? So that's great. Is the one in Gary, does that happen to be at Art House?
We're waiting for them to confirm that they'll be open because they're remodeling.
Okay.
That's the plan, is to have it at Art House.
Okay, I've been really wanting to check that out. That's like a commercial kitchen, sort of like Nana Claire, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, hey, I do have to get rolling, guys, but thank you so much for your time. I will process this video and get it put up there hopefully very soon.
Great.
Thank you.
And how do we, Kathy, how do we continue to talk to people on this thread? Is it all in the group?
Yeah, you know what? I will message you as a follow-up to kind of let you know. But yeah, on that Lumio thread, I would like everybody on the Lumio thread to be a member of the Time Bank, just so that we know that when we ask one another for services, we know that we've got that common currency of time banking. Because otherwise it just gets a little awkward. Like, am I just asking you to help me and I'm not, honoring time? So yeah, we got to get you in there, Anne. And Tegan too, and your whole fam, doing it as a family is kind of fun. So anyhow, cool. Thanks so much, you guys. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and end unless anybody's got one more parting thought.
No, thanks, Kathy.
We're good. Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.